Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast. This is episode number 34, and we're glad to have everybody here listening. And we'd like for you to like us and follow us. This past week, out of 630 podcasts in the spoken word category in the United States, we were ranked 30th, and that's because people like us and follow us and check in on us, see if we have something you want to listen to. If not, we appreciate it. Check back next week. Today, our special guest is Jeff Graham. He's the director of the Beckley's Health Right, and but I've known Jeff a long time. And I guess the first time we ever met, you were keeping score in the Beckley City softball. How'd you get started? You were young.
Yeah, Wayne, first, it's just awesome to be with you. Good to see you. It was 1975 or 76. I was 12, 13 years old at the time. Little League had ended, and that was, I stopped up at Carlos Garden and was umpiring, and I knew him from the Y. I started keeping score. Everybody thought there was a girl up there in the press box. Man, that led to some amazing things over the years.
Now, you were 12 years old, and you lived in Mabscott, right?
Yes.
And so how did you that was every night you worked. How did you get there and get home?
Well, I was usually at the Y every day. I rode my bike up. I was pretty mature for my age, I guess, and my mom and dad, it was a different time. I rode my bike to the Y, and then I rode to Warren Williams, and my dad would pick me up every night. Put my bike in the back of the truck, and home we'd go.
So you were getting paid to do this, right? And how much were you making a game?
I don't remember. It was $1 a game. It was a token which my mom and dad kept. I gave it to them.
Of course, 12 years old, you don't have many opportunities to make money, so
Right.
and you're working every night, keeps you out of trouble, and I guess so you were doing quite well. And how long did you do this?
I was involved at Warren Williams until the end of softball there. As you know, I think 81 was our last year there when it was first year of being independent. The city had sort of pulled away from it. So it just things led to things, and as I grew older, I was running the league when I was 16. I worked for Larry Foster for a while. One of my heroes. He was City of Beckley, Parks and Rec. So I was there till 80. I graduated high school in 81, and that happened to be the last year of softball at Warren Williams.
Yeah, there was. We won't mention any names. We try to keep the program positive, but there was a certain mayor of Beckley that wanted to get rid of softball for whatever reason, and we kept it going a year. The league ran it. You worked, and we kind of ran it ourselves. The players did, and then the county kind of got involved and opened up Fitzpatrick Park, and this is where I'm a little bit fuzzy. I know Ernie Hinkle did a bunch of work down there when they were getting the fields ready and everything. And one year I ran the league, and I don't know, but I didn't run it the first year.
Yeah, in 82, I think, again, a long time ago, but there were 2 years that the organization, you and Fred Persinger took over. And called it the Raleigh County Softball Association. I don't know that it was ever officially chartered or anything like that.
No, it wasn't.
But I worked for you the first year at Warren Williams. And then the second year, the league moved to Fitzpatrick. And I know that was about the time a lot of the players went down there and worked. Ernie Hinkle was just amazing to the work he did that first year. And along that period of time, the first year at Fitzpatrick, I'm pretty sure you ran the league. And the county was going to develop the park, and I applied and got a job with the county, and things led to things. And the very next year, the county took the league over, which would have been 84.
Yeah. Okay.
And then 86 was when we had the first huge softball tournament down there, the Class D states.
The year that I ran it, the county paid for the lights and everything like that. And I think basically whatever I got paid was what was left over when the league was done. After trophies and all that stuff. I don't think that I got paid anything. I'm not sure.
Probably not. The county would have supplied there weren't lights then when the park was first built.
Okay.
They would have, of course, they paid for the electricity, and there was a Musco lighting group came in and did the lights 2 or 3 years into the county operation.
Okay.
Through a big grant. But you're right, it was a county park, and the county took care of all the utilities.
But it was a 7-day-a-week job, and then when you took over, then that's when it started. I mean, softball had a lot of interest back then. You had USSSA and ASA, and then you lived down there.
I did.
You did. And
that's where I met my wife. She played in the women's league.
Well, I was going to ask you that, how you guys met, because you were busy all the time, and so it was through softball then, and you brought in the Class D state tournament.
Yeah, that was 1986. I had been with the county since '82, and we had tried to build the program up. That was 60 teams, just a massive undertaking. I was 23 years old, and I look back and I just tell my daughters, my twins are 24. You can do anything. Just be committed to it. We played softball. There were 3 fields at Fitzpatrick then, and Harry Lewin, Sarge Maynard agreed to let us play over there. Cut out second base in the infield. We played at Warren Williams. The city sent a grader up and cleared the field again. It was all dirt. And we played at Shady Spring Junior High, which became middle school. The field behind there, it was a nice field then. And so we played on 6 fields, 6 diamonds, 2-day event, 60 teams.
Wow.
And I tell people, people have no idea today what softball was like at its peak. This is 60 teams playing Class D softball. A home run is an out. And now the equipment and everybody wants to hit home runs. This was a game of defense and skill.
Yeah.
It was
And
awesome.
and every weekend, there was tournaments somewhere. Just people did it for fundraisers. People did it to have something to do. And
you used to run a tournament at John W. High Field, the factory field. I remember one year we used the orange pumpkin balls.
Oh yeah, everybody got mad about that.
It.
But I had Bobby Sanger and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I played in 2 leagues, played Oak Hill League, Beckley League, played every weekend. And I don't know how my marriage lasted. And he said, well, his didn't. And it was pretty taxing. But let's go, kind of took us up into softball. Let's go back to the Y just a second. During that, after meeting you and you were running the league or working as a scorekeeper, and you hung around a lot at the Y, you were one of the best volunteers we had. You could always keep score, referee, or whatever. What'd you do in the spare time? Did you have any spare time? Did you?
I look back on those years, and honestly, I didn't. I bowled in a bowling league, and I played golf, and there for a period of time. As I got older, I officiated high school baseball and basketball and a little bit of football. But you mentioned the Y. I grew up there when I started playing basketball in the Biddy League. When you and Chuck Littlejohn were there, and Bob and Mel, and I've experienced your discipline at the Y when I was younger. to talk about something Bobby mentioned, but and it just progressed to when I left the county. And after '86, it would have been early '87. I went to work at the Y. Bob Boland had called me, and it was the winter of '87. And he wanted me to run the basketball program. I think Rick Vass had left in those days. And I said I would, but I wanted to run the basketball tournament, the Bitty Buddy tournament at the end of the basketball season. I've always liked this make this event to be the biggest and best it could be. And I spent, all told, the better part of a decade at the Y, from '87 to really 97 with a couple of years off. I served 2 stints there. Great years.
Now, and during that time, of course that tournament, the Bitty Buddy tournament that the Y had was huge back then, but it even got bigger when you ran it. I think it was the biggest it ever was during the time that you ran it. How many, like 110 teams or something?
Well, the last year was 97. There were over 100 teams. We played at 8 or 10 gyms in the county, in the area. But the key to that was always surround yourself with good people, like yourself and others who would manage the sites. You can't do, and this was a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So there's a lot of basketball in 3 days.
And why depended on volunteers. I mean, there was no way they could do all that stuff with it. But somewhere along the line, when you were involved with the softball and the Y, I mean, you must have recognized that you like to do stuff you like to organize and govern. I knew even when I was a kid, we had 28 boys in my neighborhood that all grew within about 2 or 3 years of the same age. And I was usually the one to organize sandlot football games, basketball games, and it's just something I enjoyed doing. And I guess, I mean, somewhere along the line, you had to recognize that you like this,
Absolutely.
Even though it's work.
Early on, in the days at Warren Williams softball, this is me. It's a gift that there are administrators, and I enjoyed playing the sports. I was successful in a lot of athletics, but my gift was to organize, as you say, to organize and administrate or administer the events. And I always wanted them. I'm challenge motivated. Always, I wanted it to be the best that it could be. In order to do that, you have to surround yourself with good people. Which it wasn't just me, man. It was just I had a lot of good people around me, and you shoot for the stars.
And running some of those things. I mean, you definitely wanted to pay the bills, but you always usually was trying to make some money. That was what we were always kind of stuck with. I mean, at the Y, when you had races, basketball tournaments, weightlifting, whatever it was, you wanted to make some money, or not sure it was exactly worthwhile because you had to pay bills and stuff. But I guess that's been always, if I had a bucket list, I think my bucket list is I'd like to run an event with an unlimited budget. And I'll know that'll never happen, but
I used to think about how wonderful it would be to organize and direct the Olympics.
Wow.
To be back, you remember 1980, they were in LA, and that, I was young, and that would be awesome.
Russia didn't come that year.
No. But that would be awesome to run the Olympics.
Tell me about your mom and dad. I mean, you grew up, you said your dad would come and get you after keeping score and stuff, and of course it was a different time, but are your mom and dad still around?
Still with us. My dad's 80. They're both in their 80s. My dad's 85, and the past 2 years has been tough. COVID is sort of, some of our elderly have just had to shelter in place, and that's not healthy. But they're doing fine.
Now, after you worked at the Y, what did you do then? I mean, you said 97.
I went back to work for the county, but there was a period of time when I worked for myself. There in the mid-90s, I had a Pepperidge Farm distributorship, an Intimate Bakery distributorship. While I was working at the Y, I went back to the Y while I owned that, a satellite TV shop. I opened up my own company called Graham Consulting. So I dabbled in a lot of stuff. I sold my distributorship in the late 90s and went back to work for the county as Parks and Rec director in the county in the late 90s. And I left there in 2000.
Now, you got married. When did you get
87.
married? 87.
87.
Okay, so that's about the time when you started working at the Y.
Yes, I was transitioning from the county employment to the Y in 87.
Well, I remember when you ran the Southern West Virginia youth wrestling for the county, and they had kind of departed the Y ways and were looking for some leadership. And I don't know how many years you ran it during that time, but
I think maybe a year or so at the Y, and then a couple of years for the county.
but it was becoming more of a regional type thing then. You had Raynell had a team, and Shady, and more of a Southern West Virginia thing. And so now since the Raleigh County got out of it, they have pretty much run their own little thing now, and they have a state youth program and all that. So
Awesome.
When you started at Health Right, how did that happen?
Well, before we, that you asked about those years in between, don't forget the baseball tournament with the Mountain State Baseball Classic. That
I forgot about that.
In 2000, I ran 2 of those with John Tabor. John would gather the teams, and I would do the organization of it. And that was, I bring that up because that was probably the boldest thing that we ever attempted. It was crazy. The last year, which was in 2000, we had over 100 baseball teams playing 300, I think it was 320 games in 4 days.
Wow.
And at 13 diamonds throughout West Virginia. And it's not like indoors. If it rains, we've got problems.
And baseball's a lot slower than softball.
Yeah, but that was a phenomenal event for this. And does it make a lot of money, the program itself? You spend so much money, but it brought so much money into the community.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. But yeah, I went to, I was working for myself, and when I started to work for Health Right. The clinic was started in 2000 by some wonderful people at Beckley First Baptist. And the only thing they did wrong was they got too big too quick and trying to help so many people. The free clinic back then was exclusively for uninsured adults, people, and there used to be more of those than there are now, but they're still out there. So the clinic closed, the board closed the clinic temporarily because of debt. And they approached me, I knew some of them, about coming on board as the new director, and it was 01. And initially I told them no. They said, think about it a week later. I said, okay, I'll do it for 6 months. Let me raise some money, we'll get the debt retired, get the doors open. I hand the torch to somebody else, and that was 20 years ago.
Well, what is Health Right? What do you do for us? I mean, I know some personally, myself, but what kind of services do you offer?
Well, we've recently added dental. We're a primary care facility now serving only adults, uninsured adults, and Medicaid and Medicare.
Because kids usually have a CHIP program and that kind of stuff.
There are places they can go. But we've done primary care for 21 years now. Prescription medication, referrals for x-rays and laboratory, and specialty care when we can get it. All of this. We do vision. We have vision clinics, big vision clinics, 3 or 4 times a year. People can get glasses. We just raised $500,000 and put in a dental program, a state-of-the-art dental suite, about 4 years ago. We've helped a lot of people over the years, thousands and thousands of people.
Now, do you get any federal money?
No.
You don't. Everything's donation.
No. We're funded primarily through a state grant.
Okay.
But we do have to write other grants and bring in Bennett and Highmark Foundations, Beckley Area Foundation, United Way. There are a lot that we tap into, but we couldn't make it without the state uncompensated care grant line item. The legislators give us money, and then DHHR doles it out.
What people qualify for your services? I mean, is it income based?
Income based, 300% of FPL, federal poverty level, in the household, which changes every year. And then if you have Medicaid or Medicare, you automatically qualify. And the reason that's an interesting there too, the reason we do Medicaid and Medicare was the state had asked us to after the Affordable Care Act. Well, a lot of people, this state raised the threshold for Medicaid 100%, or basically. weren't enough providers, so we agreed to do that. And then the reimbursement for Medicaid and Medicare it's minimal.
Well, like I said, I know personally people who have benefited from your program, and you accept volunteers too,
We
don't
do.
you?
Oh yes, physicians, dentists, hygienists, office volunteers. We have a lot of students that come through our facility to get their clinical time.
Now, you mentioned you met your wife in softball. Tell us a little bit about your family. How many kids you got?
I have 4, and I'm really blessed. This coming, March, I will be married 35 years. Our oldest daughter is 32 right now. I have twin daughters that are 24, and my son will be 18 tomorrow. But we have twin granddaughters. Our oldest daughter had twin granddaughters.
Wow.
Had twin girls. So we're blessed. I've been blessed my whole life. It's just it's 2 lifetimes. For 25 years I was in recreational sports programming, and then now for 20 years I've been blessed to be in healthcare administration. Night and day, but really they're not.
Yeah, those experiences kind of open up doors for you.
Yeah.
That's I spent a little over 5 years at the Y, and then I went back into education. But those years' experience at the Y, the people that I worked with and met, and opened up a whole lot of doors for me later on. And so, I mean, you got to make the most of it. And during all this time that you're busy with recreating people, and people that's never been in recreation, they don't understand that you work on the weekends and nights and times that people do not work to recreate.
Absolutely.
And so it can be a really busy schedule. But you also found, you mentioned refereeing. Bobby Sanger was telling us about your basketball refereeing experiences, and sometimes those aren't good. So you've been on both ends. If you've been a coach or a referee, you've seen both ends
Absolutely.
of it.
I did basketball for 15 years, baseball for about that, high school baseball. Football just a couple years. It wasn't my thing. But I worked a lot with Bobby when starting out, and then he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. He would rather be in the crowd yelling at the officials, although he never yelled at me. But I recall the day he talked about when we did 6 games in a day, included 4 at the Christian school and then 2 at Beckley Junior High. And then we did that Mount Hope game where he called a technical. He'd had it. He'd had a long day. He called a technical on the coach. I'll never will forget that. But I had the pleasure of working with some wonderful officials over the years, and we did some big games in the state. Back when Mullins and Pineville played, and then Wyoming East and West Side, just big, huge games, really.
And the years that I've coached, of course, I coached wrestling and football, but the years that I coached, one of my proudest accomplishments is I never got unsportsmanlike call on me. Never had one. There was some times I didn't agree with things, but I just made it a point because I refereed wrestling for 28 years, and I've caught a lot of the bad ends. But during the time also, you were the athletic director at Greater Beckley Christian. How did that come about?
Well, my family has been involved. My kids have been there since our oldest was, I'll get this wrong, but maybe the first year of high school. And then my twins went there their whole life. One of them was valedictorian at the school. So I've been and my wife is very active. There was a need. And Dr. James Fritz was the administrator in those days. This was, I guess, about 8 years ago or so, 10 years. I was the athletic director for 5 years, maybe, just to fill a need. And I did this on the side while I was doing the clinic work, because you didn't have to be at the school, which ended up being a little bit of a shortcoming. But I had a cell phone. Today's cell phone age, you can stay in touch. It was a labor of love, and it sort of kept me in touch with that. I mentioned the life. I thoroughly am blessed to be at Beckley Health Right. Mm-hmm. But there are days I miss those parks and recreation and sports programming days. So I saw this as an opportunity to fill a need for the school and to get back involved in that type of work.
I know where you're, but again too, when you ran the baseball, and you and John Tabor, and you ran the softball, and they played everywhere. Something I want to point out, we didn't have cell phones and stuff back then. And I mean, that even added to the work. I mean, the communication was tough. I mean, now you just need something, you call somebody up on the cell phone. But man, back then it was, you didn't know exactly what was going on over at Shady or Summersville and those kind of things.
In 2000, at the baseball tournament, it was in its infancy, the cell phone. It wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
You were lucky if you could get a hold of somebody, but Cell One was in existence, and they actually donated some phones to try to use. There's not coverage like it was. There wasn't coverage like there is today, but yeah, it was challenging.
One of the most fun experiences I had when I worked at the Y, I started a corporate competition, and we got businesses. And they would enter a team, and we would have, like, I think at that time, the first year I started it, we had golf closest to the hole at Black Knight on number 2. We had bowling, we had basketball, swimming, racing. I think we had about 10 events, weightlifting, bench press, whatever. And great. I mean, there was a lot of interest in that. And then and it went on for several years, even after I left. They divided up. They put the schools in a category by themselves, and then the businesses, and then I think maybe even later they might have split the businesses up between the larger ones and smaller ones. But then you called me, and this was after I was gone, and you was doing some volunteer work for the Heart Association, and you're going to have a corporate competition. It was right up my alley. Tickled me to death. Joe Giampolo, I think, was the guy.
I'd forgotten all about that until we talked the other day, and I looked at some old stuff. That was actually the Cancer Society.
Oh, cancer. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, man. I forgot. Like I said, I'd forgotten all about it. And you bring. I thought of you because, again, from the YMCA days, you were one of my heroes. I looked at a pattern I took over at the Y from people like you and Chuck Littlejohn and then Rick Bass. I began to do the corporate stars. I tried to do it the way you did it, and even make it a little better if I could. And then I forget who it was that was in charge, but they asked me to be involved, and I thought, well, I got to get Wayne involved. But there are people in our lives that just so. I started writing a newspaper column because of you. Just you're, and I did that for a long time. For the YMCA and for Beckley Health Right.
Well, I think I started doing a little column for the Y. It was kind of a health thing, and then Bob Bolin had encouraged me to do it, and we had a lot of interest at the newspaper. And then in 1980, actually I wrote the first wrestling article in 79, but the first column that has been in there for 40 years now, it started in 82, and I think I've gone through 8 or 9 sports editors during that time. All of them have been easy to work with, and I've enjoyed the heck out of it, and it kind of keeps me watching the wrestling and being around it and get a lot of interest there.
Well, I had to look every week just to see the squeeze of the water.
You would be surprised.
It was me.
Like I said, I'd like to do some. You mentioned the Olympics, an event you'd like to run sometime or another. I'd like to do something with unlimited funds. I don't care if it's a concert or whatever. But what's on your bucket list? I mean, really, those are kind of far-fetched dreams. I'm not sure they're going to happen. But what's in reality? What's on your bucket? What do you want to accomplish, Jeff Graham?
You know, I am so focused now on healthcare because it's been what I do, you know, and just try to make a difference in people's lives, just to serve others. We talk about sports and health. I've tried to serve people my whole life, but you know, you ask a question, I've done a lot, man. I've done a lot.
You've been blessed.
Yes, I've been blessed. And after you called, we talked. I started thinking about. I don't know of anything that I would like. Yeah, I'd like to travel some, of course. I've never been to Europe. Maybe go to Europe. But in terms of just be there for my family, be there for my grandkids, and.
Well, now that you're on this podcast, you can mark that off your bucket list.
Yeah, I can mark it off.
You're here.
I don't know, Mason. You may make me start my own podcast just to because I look up to you so much. No, that's not going to happen.
Well, Jeff, I hate to tell you this, but our time has run out, but you got to promise me you'll come back because we got to do part 2 and a part 3. And
I'd be glad to.
And I'd love to have you. I enjoy talking with you. And I know everything that you've done. You've done it with a purpose and a passion, and you're good at it. And we love it. And anybody else out there that would like to be on the program, just contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com, and we'll get you a holler and get back with you. Until then, remember, if you ain't dead yet, you ain't done yet. And this is Wayne Bennett and saying God bless you.